I've reached my limit. I don't want to be a Biden derangement syndrome channel. I wasn't a fan of how every single thing Trump did was bad, and I always try to figure out where I can at least say something someone did was good. For example, when the Afghan crisis started, Joe Biden came out and gave his speech. I actually praised him. You watched my video. I said, look, I think some of the things he said was good. Notably, we can't send brave men and women from the United States to go fight a war the Afghans aren't willing to fight themselves. And it was wrong. We ended up learning that Joe Biden in the middle of the night abandoned, or I should say the Biden administration, abandoned Bagram Air Force Base, a strategic location with 2 runways that is fortified that could have easily evacuated everybody. And more importantly, abandoning the base without informing the commanders or the commander of the Afghan Air Force, the security forces, so that they were left holding an empty bag, confused about logistics or what was even going on. We saw the videos of the Afghan commandos fighting, running out of ammo, and then being executed by the Taliban. So I can no longer even just try to say good things about this man. It may just seem cliche, I suppose. Biden is bad. He is so bad. It is as bad as we thought it was going to be. And trying to find a light in this darkness is naive and ignorant at this point. The Daily Mail spares nothing. Nowhere to hide, Joe. President adopts fetal position as he crumbles under questioning and tries to blame Trump for Afghanistan catastrophe after 13 troops were killed along with 90 Afghans in ISIS attack. My friends, the number's gone up. We've got an updated number. This is from Ahmed Mukhtar. He's a CBS journalist in Afghanistan. The death toll from the attack has jumped to 170 people, including 32 men, 3 women, 3 children. Identity of 132 others still unidentifiable. Nearly 200 people also wounded. Now, that's the latest. But I'm going to tell you why there's a line for me. Look, the media ragged on Trump no matter what he did. There was nothing ever good about what Trump did. And that's absurd. They were lying, they were cheating, and they were stealing because they didn't like the man. And so I was constantly saying, that's ridiculous. Stop blaming. Stop making me defend Trump, right? That was the meme. Take a look at this story from Politico. Obviously, why you clicked on this segment. U.S. officials provided Taliban with names of Americans, Afghan allies to evacuate. The White House contends that limited information sharing with the Taliban is saving lives. Critics argue it's putting Afghan allies in harm's way. One defense official said he just gave the Taliban a kill list. I don't even know what to say. U.S. officials gave the names of Americans, allies, green card holders to the enemy. To the enemy. The Taliban was not supposed to storm the provincial capitals and take the cities. The deal was that they wouldn't do that. The hope was that the Afghan security forces would maintain themselves. Joe Biden abandoned them. No more logistics. So, look, I read one expert analysis, and maybe there's some Biden derangement syndrome, I suppose, but I just think at this point, you've got to accept reality. One of the experts was saying that the American military doctrine is always air support, air superiority. And so we provided the Afghan security forces with an air force. Even Biden brought that up. But logistics was pulled. The contractors were pulled. Maintenance and repair for the aircraft was pulled. And Bagram was abandoned in the middle of the night. Left, abandoned to looters. Not even the Taliban. And then Mark Milley is like, well, I was told to defend the embassy. It is beyond failure. Some have even contended Biden did this on purpose. But to hear now that after what they did in abandoning our bases in the middle of the night, I mean, you have to wonder if they botched it on purpose because they want justification for a reinvasion. Because now they're saying Biden's facing a dilemma. Send in more troops to seek justice for the death of these U.S. troops and civilians, or leave. Yeah, it's almost like they wanted this to happen so they could say, oh, no, we have to fight back. Oh, it's ISIS. Why did they give the names of American citizens to the enemy? The Taliban was not, in the peace agreements Trump had with them, supposed to be storming into Kabul and shutting everything down. No, they violated the treaty. They are our enemies. And so the U.S. decided it would be appropriate to give up the identities of Americans trapped in Afghanistan. Some people have said that's treason. And you know, interestingly enough, I mean, providing material support to the enemy in a time of war, giving up the names of American citizens to the enemy when they are trapped behind enemy lines, I don't even know what to say. This man, Biden, must resign, step down, be impeached, whatever. This is insane. For all of the problems Trump had, man, this was not one of them. Absolutely not. Political reports. U.S. officials in Kabul gave the Taliban a list of names of American citizens, green card holders, and Afghan allies to grant entry into the militant-controlled outer perimeter of the city's airport, a choice that's prompted outrage behind the scenes from lawmakers and military officials. Oh, I get it, but you're not going to defend this. They're like, well, the Taliban set up checkpoints. They want to get, we're trying to get the Americans out. We had to tell them who the Americans were. No, you didn't. And even still, why are you surrendering? Apparently, the French special forces in Germany, they're going in like strike teams and extracting their citizens. Not the U.S. They're giving up the names to the enemy. It's almost like Joe Biden wants these people to lose their lives. Why? Well, I wouldn't be surprised if the end result was that they want to justify a reinvasion. They're already sending in more troops. You cannot trust the establishment, neocon, warmonger class. You want to know why I think there's a reason to believe they do this stuff on purpose? Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck flew to the Middle East. He has no reason to do that. Glenn Beck is as rich can get, isn't it? He's not the richest guy in the world, but he's very wealthy, very comfortable. With his massive, beautiful Texas studio, the man can enjoy the finest wines and steaks every night. He has no reason to risk his life going on a mission to rescue people from Afghanistan. I have tremendous respect for what Glenn Beck is doing. Excellent moves. Glenn, you rock, man. This is awesome. They raised over $30 million, the Nazarene Fund. They are rescuing people. But Glenn Beck said, Glenn Beck said on Tucker Carlson, the State Department blocked attempts to rescue Afghan Christians. So this is from Texas News Today. I'm sure there's probably some better sources. I think we actually have here we go, Daily Mail. Not to consistently just use the Daily Mail for everything, but you know what? Glenn Beck claims U.S. State Department and Biden's White House are blocking his efforts to rescue Afghan Christians from the Taliban who want to set them on fire. Beck claimed on Thursday that the State Department blocked his rescue effort. His group, the Nazarene Fund, is attempting to evacuate Afghan Christians. He fears some were killed in a suicide blast after being turned back at the airport. Beck said his organization has saved 5,100 Afghans from persecution. It is unclear how many Christian Afghans are left in the country. This is amazing. Now, I actually even heard, I haven't checked on this one, that Hillary Clinton is flying in to rescue people. Amazing. I absolutely despise Hillary Clinton for everything she has ever done, basically. She is awful. But I tell you this, she's flying in to rescue people from the Taliban. I respect it 100%. Now I have to wonder why it is that we are in this mess. Joe Biden in the fetal position, they say. Is it on purpose? I can't describe intent. I don't know what's going on in their minds, and I think it's entirely possible. Perhaps the simple solution is that Joe Biden, as we all knew, is not with it. But if that were the case, why are they blocking Glenn Beck from saving people? Why are they giving the names of American citizens to the enemy? I'm sorry. You know, I often operate on the least amount of assumptions, so let's play a game. Conspiracy theories. Not a fan. You got to make too many leaps of faith to believe something to be a grand conspiracy. But what happens when you have, in the dead of night, the U.S. military abandoning a secure, strategically positioned Air Force base 45 miles outside of the city, in the middle of the night, not informing our allies in the Afghan security forces, just leaving it, sneaking out? Why would we do that? That's weird. Why wouldn't they do a drawdown? Why wouldn't they keep the base to evacuate people? Why wouldn't they evacuate American citizens and our allies before leaving? Why did Joe Biden push the deadline back several months and then still screw it all up? Why did Joe Biden allow the Taliban to start seizing the provincial capitals when there were still some troops in the country? Why did he allow the Afghan security forces to crumble as the Taliban started firing on them? Where was the air support? Why didn't we provide any of that? Why did the U.S. government allow Kabul to fall? Why did they then provide the names to the enemy who violated the treaty? Why now are they blocking people from rescue efforts? The end result of this was always obvious. The Afghan security forces would crumble, run out of ammo, have with no air support. The training and the military doctrine provided to them would be useless. Several fled. One flew to Uzbekistan, got shot down, I guess. The Taliban would then start seizing provincial capitals, pushing back and repressing and beating citizens, setting up checkpoints. Joe Biden then instructs the U.S. forces to secure a civilian airport inside a city of nearly, 5 million people, and then fall to the whims of the enemy with no pushback, and then gave them the names of American citizens, creating a kill list, essentially, especially for the Afghan allies. Look, you can argue the Taliban might kick those Americans out and be like, we don't want it. But then the Afghan allies, he may as well have just signed their death warrants. Why? Well, now that we have 13 dead U.S. troops and substantially more dead Afghan civilians, we are entertaining these thoughts. Joe's nightmare choice on whether to leave troops to attack ISIS-K or pull them out by August 31st, as Biden orders Pentagon to plan strikes. How can he hunt down the terrorists behind the double suicide blast? President Biden announced the U.S. would hunt down terrorists behind the attack. At least 13 U.S. military personnel died in 2 suicide bombings at the airport. Biden said the evacuation would continue as planned until August 31st. And he said he had asked for plans to strike at ISIS-K leadership and assets. But intelligence experts said the U.S. now lacked the assets needed to hunt down the terrorists in Afghanistan. Oh. After this attack, Biden's hard choice is reinvade. So was that it? Were all of these failures lined up perfectly so that the dominoes would fall and that Biden could say, oh, woe is me. Oh, no. Now we got to go back and invade the country to deal with the terrorists. I don't know. But I got to tell you, you would have to make many assumptions in either direction. Okay, if you want to claim that Joe Biden's just a crackpot who ain't all with it and there's no adults in the room, I suppose. But man, is this a perfect storm? Certainly someone would have said, don't abandon the Air Force. Don't abandon the Air Force base until we evacuate our citizens. How could there be blunder after blunder after blunder after blunder? Unless it's worse than we realize. It's one thing to say that Joe Biden's not all with it. It's another thing to say, not only is he not all with it, he never cared in the first place. That's a possibility, too. But I don't know which one makes the least amount of assumptions, to be honest. Do they want to send in more troops to Afghanistan and just keep the war going? Yeah, they definitely do. They didn't want to withdraw forces in the first place, but Trump was pulling our troops out and they couldn't do anything about it. And the American people wanted us out of Afghanistan. And this could have been done right. In fact, it's entirely possible, based on everything I've read so far, it could have been successful. In this, it is one of the stupidest things to say, I suppose, that nation building in Afghanistan could have been successful. But I mean, if we did not abandon our allies the way we did, they may have been able to hold their own. In fact, look, Donald Trump has come out and said the reason this wouldn't have happened under his leadership is because he knew the Taliban knew some F-18s would come and, strike them. Where are the drones? Come on, we got drones. The Obama administration, they called him Obama because he flew around drones. Where's he at? Where's it at? Nothing. I don't know. I don't know what to say, I don't know if it was on purpose or not. But I just got to stress the giving the names of American citizens. I just can't get over it. I can't. I know I said it like 12 times already. How do you reconcile that? I mean, at the very least, there's got to be a hearing on this. And I will tell you, criminal homicide, negligent homicide? Look, a lot of people are saying treason because Joe Biden's U.S. officials, Joe Biden's administration, provided the names of Americans and our allies to the enemy, providing them material support and potentially, I think it'll lead to Americans dying. We'll see. Treason. At the very least, this is some kind of criminal action. Some kind of negligent action. Compromising people's lives, putting them at risk. I don't know. It's just absolutely insane to me. Tucker Carlson says president is fading before our eyes and brands him a lunatic with no self-respect after Kabul bomb killed 13 U.S. service personnel. Tucker Carlson branded Joe Biden a lunatic with no self-respect on his show. Carlson made his comments at the start of his nightly opinion show after the events in Afghanistan. He started the talk show with a monologue in which he suggested that someone who has hated the country and wanted to humiliate America for good would use Afghanistan to do that, alluding to Biden. Carlson said it would humiliate everyone involved to withdraw from Afghanistan after a war that has lasted 19 years and turn the war into a welfare program while spending trillions of dollars to do so. When crowds of desperate people showed up, as they inevitably would, begging to be evacuated, you'd be certain to give preference to the foreign nationals, the ones who might hate you and prefer Sharia law to democracy. They would get the first seats on the plane. As for your own citizens, the people you exist to protect, we just wish them luck and leave them behind. No, Tucker, it was worse than that. The U.S. officials named them to the Taliban. They didn't just say, we're going to leave you behind. They said, here's the people we're looking for. It's like when Joe Biden went to Putin and said, here's the list of targets you can't attack. Here's our list of top priorities and hotspots. So what? Now we've given, Joe Biden has provided our enemies with a lot. Tucker continued. Then, having done all of that, you go on television back in your own country to brag about what an amazing job you've done. You'd call yourself a hero. You compare your evacuation of Kabul to the Berlin airlift. And that way, once you've done that, the rest of the world would know you're not simply incompetent and weak. You're also delusional. You're a lunatic with no self-respect. Carlson said the enemies of the U.S. took advantage of America's diminished condition. In moments like this, Americans turn instinctively to their president for perspective and leadership. It doesn't matter if they voted for him. They want to be reassured by the man in charge. But Joe Biden did not reassure them. He didn't even appear. For hours, Biden remained hidden and silent. Finally, the White House announced that Joe Biden would speak to the country at 5 p.m. this afternoon, but even then, he didn't show. Carlson said that when Biden eventually did speak, it was hard to believe this is the man in charge of our country. Joe Biden is fading before our eyes. He began by muttering something irrelevant and weird about his late son, Beau, whom he described as the U.S. attorney in Kosovo, as if that position exists. Beau Biden died of cancer in 2015, with his father convinced the disease was brought on by exposure to toxic chemicals during a tour in Iraq. And then Biden pledged, his voice weak and halting, speaking at a pace half of what a normal person speaks at, that he was going to somehow hunt down and punish the people who killed our Marines today. Biden had said on Thursday, to those who carried out this attack, as well as anyone who wishes to do harm to America, know this: we will not forgive, we will not forget, we will hunt you down and make you pay. No, you won't, unfortunately. The tragedy today was not a complete surprise. There was intelligence suggesting it might happen just hours before the attack. Let me explain something to all of you. Those brave men and women who lost their lives. They knew. The warning went out to American citizens and to UK citizens to stay away. And they knew. And they followed their orders to continue processing people to be evacuated. I wonder if the Biden administration knew about the threats, why didn't they simply just shut down, back away and say, get our troops out of there? It's already a disaster. But you would tell American citizens to leave. I get it. Afghan citizens to stay, to be processed. It's almost like they do it on purpose, isn't it? Because think about it. The Afghan citizens being told, we're going to process you and evacuate you. Americans stay away. And the Afghan citizens go to the gate where the U.S. Marines are processing them. And the intelligence was correct. And now people are dead. If they knew to tell Americans to stay away, why didn't they get our troops out of there? Why would they continue to prioritize Afghan citizens for evacuation? Answer me this. They continued to process Afghan citizens for evacuation, told Americans not to come for evacuation. That's clearly showing they're prioritizing Afghan citizens. But they also knew they were keeping our Marines in harm's way to evacuate people who are not Americans. I don't know what else to say other than, to me, if you came and said it was on purpose, I'd be like, how do I say no to that? How do I argue against it? Honestly, I don't know if I can. I mean, sure, Biden's demented, potentially, literally, figuratively. He's out of his mind. But I just don't know, man. Here's what I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see this used as an excuse for some kind of incursion, bolstering of troops, military activity in the Middle East. And they'll say this attack, lives in infamy. It's like we tried to leave, but they won't let us, or something like that. They'll say that we negotiated a peace deal that was instantly violated. And as much as it is our goal to leave, we were attacked. And we can't allow terror to return. ISIS is back. Yeah. Here we go. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. And we'll just pray for the best, man. We'll hope that this is not... We'll hope this is the worst of it, but we'll see. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all at 1 on this channel.